Humans have a strained relationship with wild animals, but this happened after a tigress gave her cubs to a man. Joseph was a young hunter in a small village surrounded by a thick forest in Russia. One morning, he prepared to go into the forest as usual. He needed many kills that day because he needed meat for personal consumption, and his customers had requested some from him too. As he proceeded into the forest that morning, all he could find were birds. Joseph decided to go deeper into the forest, hoping to find bigger hunts. He didn't go far before he stumbled upon something that made him stop dead in his tracks. Just a few feet away was a tiger staring right at him. His heart raced, but he soon noticed something unusual about the tiger. It wasn't approaching him and didn't look like it wanted to attack him. Joseph wasn't taking any chances, so he cocked his rifle in case the tiger lunged at him. Despite Joseph now posing a threat to the tiger, it didn't attempt to attack him. It only backed away and growled loudly to establish boundaries. While the tiger moved back, Joseph observed that its teats were filled with milk. He suspected that the tiger might have babies nearby. This was not all. He noticed that the tigress was wounded in its hind leg. Someone had shot it, and the wound had gotten infected. It was clearly in pain, so Joseph moved closer to help, but the tigress moved back and growled. It then turned around and headed towards a nearby tree. Joseph could not abandon the tigress in that condition, so he followed it from afar. Suddenly, he heard soft growls, and as he looked at the ground underneath the tree, he saw two cubs. Joseph was confused about what to do. He wanted to move closer to make sure the cubs were okay, but at the same time, he couldn't risk incurring the wrath of the tigress for touching its babies. Then, to his surprise, the tigress picked up one of the cubs and dropped it at his feet. The tigress then went for the second cub and dropped it beside the first one. It then retreated, leaving the cubs with Joseph. It instantly occurred to Joseph that the tigress trusted him, a human being, to take good care of her cubs. He was astonished by this privilege and took the duty seriously. Joseph sprang into action to ensure the cubs were in good health. He took them to the vet where they were treated, and he was given instructions on how to care for them. He took them home and named them Sasha and Alexei. As the cubs grew older, Joseph was offered large sums of money to sell them to zoos, but he declined every offer. No amount of money could make him betray the tigress's trust. Unfortunately, he had to part ways with the tigers when they were getting too big. He released them back to the wild. Joseph couldn't stay away from them for long, though. He went back to the area where he had met the tigress, hoping he would come across the animals. When night came without any sight of them, he pitched his tent with plans to return home the following morning. Shortly after settling down, he saw a huge bear appear from the woods. Before Joseph could gather his thoughts, the bear lunged at him. He stood up and sprinted into the woods, but the bear chased after him. Joseph soon started to get tired, but the bear wasn't relenting. Just as the bear was closing in on Joseph, two tigers suddenly came out of nowhere and faced the bear. Joseph looked back and immediately recognized the tigers as Sasha and Alexei. He was relieved and so happy to see them hale and hearty. While Joseph stood there still trying to comprehend how the tigers came to his rescue, they stood their ground and kept growling at the bear until it ran off. The tigers then moved closer to Joseph for the most beautiful reunion. Joseph hugged the tigers before they walked away and disappeared into the woods. Joseph's story proves that humans and animals can live amicably when compassion and respect exist in their interactions.